How's everyone's energy level? Good? It's been a long day, very nourishing, very stimulating. Okay, that's good. And I noticed that Caitlin, of course, announced the cocktails before my speech, so I'm going to make it worth your while. So I am delighted to be here. And by the way, I'm doing this without my reading glasses, so it's always a risk. But I am really delighted to be here, really honored to be a part of this convening. This is such a critically important set of topics to the philanthropic sector. I wonder how many people are here representing foundations, donors, foundations. Like the lights are not optimal here, so I think maybe about a third, would you say, right? What I'd say, I'll just describe the Surdna Foundation. So we are a 107-year-old private family foundation here in the United States. Our mission is to advance social and racial justice in U.S. communities, and we do that through 4 major grant-making programs on climate justice, youth justice, economic inclusion, and arts and culture. And I'm going to begin, I'm going to structure my talk because I'm rereading Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, the new edition with N.K. Jemison's foreword, if any of you have that edition. And in that foreword, N.K. Jemison talks about the power of threes, and so I'm gonna present 3 threes to you today. And by the way, it's fitting. It's a fitting tribute to Octavia Butler because it is 2024 after all. For those of you who get the reference, the 3 threes I'm going to talk about. The first one is going to be about our institutional outcomes, just to tell you a little bit about the foundation and what we do. The second set of threes is 3 reasons why I'm very glad that the Surdna Foundation is a member of the Partnership on AI. And the third one is 3 examples of how we as a foundation are grappling with these issues and working with partners to hopefully develop some infrastructure. As one of the speakers just said, how do we prepare for what's to come? And I think part of that is making investments in infrastructure and partnerships and whatnot. So I'll talk about those 3 sets of things. And so starting with Surdna's goals, we call these our institutional outcomes. In all of our grant making and all of our work beyond the money, as we say, we are trying to advance democratic participation, and that includes eliminating the barriers to participation, like voting, and ensuring that people have a voice in public decision making, especially voices that have historically been excluded, like communities of color, immigrants, low-income communities. The second institutional outcome that we focus on is wealth building. And again, it is focused on closing the gaps in opportunity and capital and in the outcomes that are enabled by people having assets. And again, often determined by race, by income, by gender, by other forms of identity. And the third institutional outcome is ensuring transparency and accountability. We believe this is critically important because our democracy and our economic system should really deliver equal protection, equal opportunity, and often it doesn't. And so how can we really live up to our own high standards? So those are our institutional goals as the Surdna Foundation. I'll note that we have a belief that all these are interconnected. If we can manage to make progress on any number of these, and especially together in an interconnected way, we hope that we can make a difference in ensuring that a person's outcomes in life aren't determined by their race, by their income, the gender, or even their zip code. So that is what we try to do. So I'll move on to the second set of threes, and these are the reasons why we're very excited to be members of the Partnership on AI. There are actually many reasons, but I'll just stick to the top 3. The first one is perhaps the most obvious. It's that AI is affecting everything, and it will do so in multiple profound ways well into the future. And many of these things are things that we can't even predict right now. It's important to note that no one at the Surdna Foundation is a technologist, not like a lot of you are. And this is true about the sector broadly. There are some foundations, like the Ford Foundation and others, that have hired technologists to work within the organizations. And I think it's such a good practice to do that, and also to really ensure that all of our programs, all of our staff are thinking about how technology is affecting every dimension of our work, from our grant making to our operations. So that's really critical. A second reason why I'm glad about the partnership is that as foundations, we're private foundations, especially endowed foundations in the United States, we reside in a very privileged part of American society. We have, we make grants, we have resources, we have relatively very, very few accountability mechanisms that govern our work. And that sounds pretty good, right? Sounds pretty nice. But we always have to recognize that it's part of a civic trust, a public trust. We have a civic responsibility. I mean, that's why the IRS allows us to exist. And we also need to recognize that because of our philanthropic dollars, because of our relative independence, we're in a very good position to convene people, to be an honest broker, to really focus on the public interest aspects of technology and create space and invest in infrastructure to make that happen. So that is something that we have really strived to do at the Surdna Foundation. And enable all of us to focus on that social technical lens that we're all learning about, integrating the technical aspects of AI development and deployment with an ethical framework, with the sense of social justice and equity considerations as well. The third item that I'll mention is that we need to build power. We need to build influence. And you may be wondering, well, isn't that a funny thing to say, because aren't tech companies completely omnipotent, omniscient? Isn't the government incredibly powerful already? Aren't big foundations very powerful? Well, yes, we all are. There are different kinds of power at play here, but I would humbly argue, I would humbly propose that those of us who are thinking about public interest technology, about responsible deployment of AI and a regulatory and policy framework for this work aren't influential or powerful enough yet. And that we need to gain influence, we need to gain trust with each other to be able to work together, to move together, and institute those reforms that we're hoping for. And that's the whole reason why we're here, right? Okay. And I say all of that because I do recognize, and I think we all recognize, that there's tremendous power in AI, power for good things, power to advance very positive outcomes, to find meaningful signals out of the giant data noise that we have out there, to ensure easier access to information, access to opportunities, to free up more time for personal leisure, for personal time, for interactions. That is all the wonderful promise, and yet at the same time, many of the benefits can come at a great cost, as we've discussed throughout the day. And so, we stand here, we are gathered here to ask ourselves, will algorithms continue, or will they be biased, racially biased, gender biased? Will privacy be protected for users of technology and tools and data sets? Will technologies entrench current systemic patterns of racial discrimination in terms of who gets hired, who gets a mortgage, who gets good medical care, all those types of things that many of us want and some of us take for granted and not all of us have. So how can we ensure that technology deployment can be fair and inclusive? That is absolutely critical. So these are big, weighty challenges. I'm going to focus on the last set of threes, things that we can do. I'm going to first start with safety and highlight a grant that we've made for AI for the people. Many of you are familiar with Mutali Nkunde, who is famous for saying that technosocial means that AI is not simply a technology in a vacuum, but a phenomenon that affects people's lives in very real ways. And in fighting that algorithmic bias and supporting the development of policy proposals to address that, her organization is really making some important gains in that respect. A second example of a grant that we are working on builds on this do no harm and mitigating harms theme regarding our democratic system. So we've been working with an organization called AI in Democracy. It's led by Alondra Nelson, who many of you know, former acting director of the White House Office of Science and Technology, along with Julie Angwin from the New York Times to help inform public understanding of AI risks. And they have developed an exercise that really holds AI chatbots to account in terms of their responses to prompts about the election, particularly this year. And we're hoping that that really unveils some valuable lessons about how to deploy and design technology in ways that can help us protect our democratic systems. And the third example I'll cite is a grant that we made to support the partnership on AI. And that's the whole reason why we're here. It is absolutely essential for us to come together as people from different sectors, different stakeholders with different perspectives, and work on these issues together, not just to talk about it at a high level, but to really go deep on major themes that they have focused on, like the intersection of labor and the economy, media integrity, and ensuring inclusivity in the development of AI tools. For that, we are very grateful. I'm going to end, because I see my time is up here, I'm going to end by posing one more question to all of you. A lot of the discussion about AI tools is about doing no harm, reducing harm, mitigating risk, those types of things. I would love to work with all of you, have an ongoing conversation about how we can proactively ensure that AI tools and other technologies can actually proactively be reparative, can be helpful and healing in our society. I might refer to this as reparative AI. And especially in the field of racial equity and justice, this is something that our country needs. Imagine the value of repair in our society. If you look at historic patterns of discrimination and exclusion, what would an AI technology that really tries to address that in a reparative way look like? And with that, I'll conclude, and thank you very much for having me.